benches, like we were saying before, are usually that way. When you're going down this hog back, you've got another one in the center over there, which creates a
So as you've heard me say before, every year about this time, as this is when the season starts. This is when your deer season starts. We are, I don't know how many spots I got left available. Usually around the Christmas time, I'm about 50% or so. And then right after the deer season-ish, somewhere in there, you know, some folks run until the end of December, 1st of January, wherever that falls. And then we pick up the rest of our remaining clients. And this year our goal is to do 80. But we've also got a bunch of other things tying into that that's going to be a real successful year ahead of us here. So it looks right now. Hopefully, Lord willing, keeps us healthy, keeps us on the road, and we're able to reach out and help a bunch of you guys reach and exceed your hunting goals for this year. But again, it all starts right now. This is the starting point of where your success comes come October. So we're going to touch on 3 points tonight of where you should be and kind of how to tell what to do. You know, what's the process of elimination. I had a successful season, and is there more that I can do? Or I had a horrible hunting season, and I know there's something that I need to do, but what do I do? Where do I start? Right? That's a huge deal. That's something that I really respect, because I've been there. I have been there. I'm at that situation. Like, what do I do first right here going on the farm, because the farm is new here in Kentucky? I've got this chore list, right? And it's like, okay, I need to, and I do this for a living, and I have to stop and I have to break that down and mentally prepare myself for, this is what I need to get done first, and this is how I need to accomplish it. But where it starts is knowing that process of elimination. If you've worked with me in the past, or you've reached out this year, you'll know that I speak of the habitat plan that I specifically tailor for each one of my client properties. So not only do you leave with a handbook that's 50 plus pages this year that kind of goes over everything that we speak of and stuff that you'll find here on the channel, there's also a habitat plan that is specifically for your property, that touches on food, that touches on just like we're talking tonight, the process of elimination. What do you do, and how do you get there? So I break that down, and then I'll obviously also your fully edited design. So my goal is, when I leave the property, is so you guys have all the tools in your toolbox to accomplish your habitat plan. Make your property, bring that property to the surface, and like we said, give you that return on investment through deer hunting. But it has to start somewhere. So the number one topic that we're going to touch on, and I think maybe this might be the most important, but we're just going to start it at number one, is knowing the problem, knowing if there's an issue as far as your habitat. Not knowing if there's an issue because if you pulled the trigger or you put a buck on the wall this year, but knowing, is the habitat correct? So the number one thing that you need to focus on is how to figure out, is that habitat correct? One of the biggest ways to know that is, without obviously walking through and looking at stem count, is the success that you had from the stand. Now, that there's a variance there. Is the stand in the right place to begin with? But if you didn't experience the cruising bucks, if you can say that, yes, I was in the stand and during the pre-rut, region specific, the pre-rut going into the rut, I didn't see those bucks cruising behind certain doe bedding areas, and it just feels like it's too open. Well, if you have that feeling, the answer is your habitat is not correct. So that is the first step of knowing that it's not, right? So what do we do, or what are the other steps that go into number one? The other step is getting out of the stand, obviously, what most of you are right now, or getting close to, and getting boots on the ground and surveying your habitat. If your habitat in specific areas, very important. This leads into the number two topic. But the habitat in specific locations, your stem count has to be higher, has to be denser, in the areas where you want to hold deer. It has to be less in the areas where you don't want to hold deer, or you want your deer to bypass to get to those huntable areas. So your stem count, what is regenerating? Where is it regenerating? And how is that regeneration doing? Do you have enough sunlight? Do you have the main ingredient to make this a property shine, or browse and woody browse and make dense deer area that deer want to spend their life in? Do you have enough sunlight to get to that forest floor to make that happen? And a lot of properties that I touch on are either on one side of the spectrum or the other. It's way too thick. You need to punch a hole into it, because so you can really you can really manipulate deer movement. Or the canopy is closed. It's mature timber. The canopy is closed, and it's a wide open park effect, or hugely looked at or sought after as a TSI, not whitetail habitat. So knowing the habitat, is it correct? If you solve the problem, that let's say it is correct, let's say it was heavily select cut, or maybe even close to clear cut years ago, and you're in that 5, 6, 7 year period since that's happened, your stem count you feel is right, and your woody browse is there, the deer are bedding, and you're finding a bunch of doe beds around food sources. What's the problem? Then we start looking at other things. We start teaching and learning and looking into we start looking at access. We start looking at stand placement. But where it starts is you have to have the habitat. One of the questions I get all the time is just like, okay, but I think it's good for deer, but what are couple of the signs? One of the things I look at is, so I've got a real bad coyote problem going on the farm here. In this area, it has a huge coyote problem going on in central Kentucky right now. And I think one of the biggest reasons for that is the coyotes are here because of the small game is here. I am overloaded with rabbits and squirrels. I haven't seen the pheasants and stuff like that. I have seen some quail. The squirrels are abundant, rabbits, and I've got a predator problem. Well, the reason the predators are here is because the small game is here. So what that tells me is it's dense. There are certain areas of this property that are dense. So I am on one spectrum of poking holes through things, but it's going great because of the transitions that we set forth on the farm this year. I was able to put my transitions in, poke holes into some of that real dense, thick stuff, open some old logging roads that had been there, some benches, key on those areas, and the deer are using this 360 degrees around the property. Now I'm building more of a core. I'm densifying the property, the internal. So, and I've got some habitat work to do as far as the second point that we're going to touch on here, into logging. So that's how you find it. That's how you answer the question. Do you think it's right? Is it not? If it's a question, usually, guys, it's kind of like that old theory. If a buck comes in and you got a question if he's a shooter or not, he's probably not a shooter, right? Same thing goes for habitat. If you question if your habitat is correct, your habitat's probably not correct. So we need to work on that. Number two, the thing to focus on and to start asking and start getting lined up here is, do I need to do any logging? So that's one of the places where folks are at right now before they or when they call. So the major point of number two here is reaching out before you have a forester or a logger come in and select cut your property just to open up the canopy to get you what they look at as deer habitat. And it is, and it regenerates, and some of them are hunters themselves, so they understand that you want to deer hunt it. But we will I always tell folks this, is taking my plan, getting me in there ahead of time, getting a consultant in there ahead of time that is geared towards making a huntable whitetail analysis package for you and designing this. Your chances of having the huntability shine through are much, much higher if you have somebody come in and lay that plan out first, because then you can have the logger, and hopefully with the forester's input, you can have that logger select cut or clear cut these areas and you're doing it in different areas. The worst case in the world, guys, is taking a 40 acre, just using a 40, but taking a 40 and select cutting it from top to bottom, side to side, and spreading. What you're doing is you're spreading your habitat completely over 40 acres. And like I've always said, good luck trying to hunt it. The only thing that you have to bank on is you're hoping that, the good Lord willing, you have contour, because if you don't, you're in trouble. You're going to chase it, just like you might as well, like I said, hunt field turkeys, try to hunt ever-changing ag, bank on an area out in public ground that you don't know if they're going to cut or they're not. It always changes. What I'm going to do is we're going to come in, we're going to lay that plan out, and I'm going to get you that boards per foot, meet that requirement, that standard that a forester has set, and or usually we will exceed it. And the reason is because, like your transitions, for example, we're going to clear cut them, we're going to open them up, we're going to get that daylight to the ground. We're going to put that habitat in the right locations. We're going to make sure that the outside is not deer habitat, so you can get in and out of these properties. So that is the number two thing. Very, very important piece of the puzzle. If you think that the land, whether it's a new purchase or it's time to do something with the timber, if you think it has timber value, do yourself a favor and stop and hire. If you're gearing towards deer hunting, stop and make a phone call and get someone such as myself. Hopefully it's us. Get me in there and let's make a plan, and then cut it to the spec so you can deer hunt it the same way for 20 years. Get your log value out, and then get the rest in your pocket, and it pays for all the other habitat creations. It pays for the service to have me out there, and then you can hunt it the same way for 20 years, guys, with the opportunity to still have some TSI on the outside that you can put money in your pocket for every 10 to 15 years, or 5 to 10 years, 15 years. You can still do it. You can do it both. You can have the best, the best of both worlds. But if you go in first and you clear cut it and then you call me, or you select cut it heavy and you call me, then we're dealing with debris. Then it's a prolonged deal, because you have a lot of cleanup that you shouldn't, you may not have had in certain areas. Now you got to fight, getting into the stands. It's all connected together. You can see where that ties in. So 1 and 2 lead into number 3. So the number 3 thing is finding someone that you work with. So not only a consultant, but family members, friends, like-minded neighbors, individuals, whoever your team that you're going to hire. If you're looking for a consultant and you want to reach out, like I said, we still have some spots available going into for the 2022 season here. Or we've got some packages that we're welcoming some folks down here to the farm, and we're doing some hunt habitat packages. We're doing a expo here this year at the farm. We're going to do our field courses. We've got some stuff here that's been asked, so people can see it, put their hands on it, and then build confidence, and then go to their property and build it. So it's not that we're designing your property from afar. We are looking at your property. We're going to look at a bunch of stuff here in the lodge together, go over plans, but where you're going to excel, or what you're going to get that a lot of folks don't, is you're going to get to see it. So whatever package fits you guys, we have a lot to offer this year that we're really, really pumped up about this year. It's been years, since we're going into this and building this, to have these opportunities for you guys. So, and then food plot strategies, all that ties into it. You guys get to see it firsthand. And, but back to the topic of number 3, if you don't feel comfortable, one, with yourself, if you don't have the knowledge, or, who do I hire and how do I get this accomplished? You have to feel comfortable with who you're working with. That's because if you don't, nothing is going to get done. I see time and time again, we set these properties up, and our 2 and 3 year visit, I go in and folks just, they know that it has to happen. Sometimes it's not a funding issue that they don't have the funds to get it done. It's a, can I do this, can I not feeling, and it doesn't get accomplished. So this time of the year, on number 3, so to finish this video here, guys, is to find someone that you feel comfortable with. I'm going to throw this out there, and hopefully this generates with some of you. If you are talking to a consultant, if you have chosen a consultant that you watch on social media, other people have recommended, whatever the case is, and you reach out to that person and that person doesn't make a phone call or say, hey, call me at X amount of time or in the evening at this set time, and they're going to call, if they won't speak to you unless you pay your deposit first, huge red flag. It's not, there's so much more that is connected to this game of helping build your property. 50% of a property build, guys, is what's going on around you. Where we're sending deer after dark. You know, what pressure you have. Do you have public ground issues that we're looking at? Is the public ground a good thing? Are they driving deer into you? You got a bunch of ag, you know, all this stuff plays into it. And without taking the time to talk to a client, it's a huge deal in the industry right now. Don't ask me why people do that, but I'm not that guy. Give us a call, and I usually do my starting at 6 o'clock every evening, about 7 and the nights that I'm hunting, and I schedule that throughout the week. And you know, I have a 95% customer contact to booking ratio. So if that tells you about how important that phone call is. So once we talk, I'm either, like I've said in the other videos, guys, I've turned away, or I've helped folks, maybe turned it away, but I helped folks decide that they're not ready for a consultant, my service. 50 people a year are better. And it's not that they're going to hire someone else, they just have to get their ducks in a row, I guess you could say, right? Before they decide to do it. It's a confidence builder. But usually, them 50 people this year, you know, there's probably 30 people that are on the books that I spoke with last year that called back and are booked now going into the season because now they're ready. But if I wouldn't have had taken the time to find that out, we wouldn't be at that situation. You know, we wouldn't have had to make that connection. I wouldn't, you know, it's all about your goals. It's all the stuff that we're going to talk about when we're at the property. But it's a huge, huge deal. If someone's too busy and too important to call and make that contact with you guys, look elsewhere. That's a huge, number one, huge red flag. But kind of a rant there. But anyway, that's, you know, the number 3 thing there. One of the most important things is follow your lead, follow your heart, find somebody that you can work with, because like I said, you're going to need help to build this. You know, you might get real lucky, whether it's a lease or it's a real simple property. I was making a joke it wasn't a joke, but I was telling a client the other night that I've had folks, when I got to the property, the dozer was sitting in the driveway idling. This is the first time I've ever been there, and they're ready to build this thing right now. You know, as soon as I leave or as soon as we get going, they're going to start building behind us, kind of thing. Other folks take, you know, 7 to 10 years to build it. It's all about funding, it's all about timing, but it all comes back and all connects to feeling comfortable and having someone in your corner to help you get the job accomplished. After I leave your property, I'm on free with you for a year. Phone calls, pictures, advice, all that stuff. And the only other expense that you ever have with me is every 2 to 3 years I come back, and there's a small fee to have me there, and we walk through it, and we're adding things. We're looking at your browse. We're looking at this, so you're a lifelong client after the first initial investment, guys. So huge deal. You have to feel comfortable, but you have to know where this all falls. And this is where a lot of folks are at right now, sitting in this chair in the living room thinking, okay, am I ready for this? Am I not? How did my hunting season go? So if you're watching this, you're tuning into this over the holidays here, you're thinking about this, get the wife involved, pick up the phone, get your son or your daughter, your deer camp, whoever is involved, pick up the phone. Let's do a video call. I do those on my 7 o'clock, or my evening phone calls. There's many ways that we can do that. We can just do a phone call, put me on speakerphone, because if you have a team, including myself is part of that team, you can do this. You can get this accomplished. And next year doesn't have to be a struggle, because once you implement this on private ground, guys, there's no better feeling in the world to be sitting in your property. And if you don't see any deer that night because of weather or whatever the case is, you know that it wasn't because of your wrong access. Wasn't because you bumped deer. It's because you're tweaking your habitat, and you're studying. The whole time you're in the stand, I need to do this, I need to enhance this more. Yep, those deer moved through. That buck did what I hoped he was going to do, or nope, there's a tree down, I need to change it. It turns into a passion. So I hope everyone gets to experience that. But that's 3 things that kind of get you ready to look at and build confidence going into the 2022 habitat season here, guys, which starts the 2022 deer season.